So the comp's pretty close. It's close enough for what we're doing on this VFX challenge. And what I normally do, of course, is I write everything out to, again, multi-channel EXR. And I'm not going to use any of the channels anymore, but EXR is just a fantastic file format. And it's perfect for writing out a sequential frame sequence to bring back into your linear editing program like After Effects or Premiere or whatever the case may be, because you want to add that to an edit, add sound, all kinds of good stuff like that. So my settings right over here on my right node, 16-bit half EXR. And that's basically it. I don't need an alpha channel because it's all put together. And what's nice about rendering it out to a sequential frame sequence, of course, is that once you have it as that, if you need to re-render something, you didn't render it out to like a big ProRes file or a DNX HD file or something, where if you have a screw up on a frame somewhere, 98% of the way down, you can just render that one frame right over and then just re-import into your editing program. I like that a lot better, that workflow, versus handling these humongous ProRes files or whatever that some people seem to like. Or oftentimes you're trying to render something and it fails at like 99%. And guess what? You got to render everything all over again, as opposed to just rendering that last frame or two that didn't make it out. It's so much easier to update stuff. Or even when you have to fix something in the shot. You make a change, you fix something, and then you just render out those few frames that you actually fixed and kick it right back over to the editing program, and you're not waiting forever. So I'm kicking everything out, and the final script, as you can see, I'm actually writing them out right now. And this is basically the final script right here, like we explained from top to bottom. I added a little bit more stuff like AO contact shadows going on and a couple of other stuff. But basically that's it. And now I'm going to go into Adobe Audition, get some sounds online, put those in as well. I'll show you my really quick and dirty kind of sound session that I created for this. Then we'll throw it all into After Effects and see what we get. So I'm in Audition, and really there's nothing to this thing. It's like 5 tracks of just thrown together sounds really quickly. But I'll just show you a couple of tips that I did do as I go through a little bit of this stuff. I always render out the movie as an MP4 so I can bring that into Audition, because I want to sync that up with certain events, like especially like when the skeleton is screaming at the end. I don't want to have to write down frame numbers or anything like that. If I could just bring that MP4 right into Audition, I could see it in the corner, and then I could just line up my WAV files to right when that's actually happening. So I just went online, and Kanto is a great site if you're a member of that, or you could just get free sound, but I'll just kind of go through a little bit of this at a time. I'm going to solo my sound right here. This is what I picked out for just the background music alone. Alright, so spooky kind of sound. Like the impending, invasion of the nuclear skeleton party, right? One thing that I did though is you're always looking for the animation beats. If you have something that seems really, powerful in your clip, or you look for, moments that can land on a beat. And most of the time you're going to have to end on a kind of a beat or a crash or something. That's what I want to do with this one. And so the crash at the end of this clip goes like this. Boom, right? So all I really did to this guy is I just took that first beat, that boom, that part, that right there, that just kind of is that crash. And I just faded out right after it. But that crash didn't exactly line up to the end of my clip, right? Because all your animations are going to be different sizes. So you just retime it in Audition without changing the pitch, and no one's going to notice that you retimed it, and it's going to end perfectly on whenever you need that crash or whatever to kind of end at. So that's all that is the background. I took, what else do I have here? I took a couple of zombie kind of moans and groans from the same website. So that's kind of like a background thing that's going on. And I just panned it over to the left of the field, and then just duplicated it and offset it over here. So it's basically the same thing, just shifted over, and this is panned not hard right, but like 45 degrees right. So you can kind of separate this. And I like to do that because oftentimes the music and dialogue is going right down the center channel. If I want sound effects happening, I'll usually pan them further apart. So it's a little bit easier sometimes, in my opinion, to hear that stuff. So here's the 2 zombie moans and groans, but panned left and right. Simple. And then right up here, this is just a police car that's just going nuts, you know, trying to approach. And all I did for this one is I just changed the volume so it was pretty low, negative 7.8 decibels. And then I rose it to the very end because, again, the climax, so to speak, of this shot is him screaming, one of the zombies screaming in rage. And so I want everything to kind of hit the fan at that point, right? So I just increased the volume steadily all the way up until basically the end of the scream, which basically just sounds something like this. Right? That's all that is. So then, the only thing really left is the big scream at the end. And let me just solo that scream. And this is something I found online called Demon Horse Scream. Well, that sounds pretty appropriate, right? And it just sounds basically something like this. And that's the dude screaming at the end, right? Something like that. So all together, it just kind of sounds like this. Alright, nothing to it. So then I just simply make a mix down of this. I normalize it to like negative 1 dB or something like that so it doesn't blast people's speakers on the internet. Normalizing is pretty important. We don't have a dedicated sound course in our Stage 3 VFX school, but we do talk about this here and there, and it is important, especially if you're a freelancer, you know, and somebody's expecting you to deliver something. You know, a good friend of mine, Ed Cheatham, he always says, half of what you see goes through your ears. So if you want to make something really effective, don't forget about the sound. The sound is super important, and it just makes everything so much better when you're looking at it. So imagine Star Wars without John Williams' awesome score, right? Or the Jaws and Shark without that dun 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 dun. Wouldn't be nearly as effective, right? So I just mix that down to a simple wave file, and let's bring it into After Effects. Maybe do a couple of fade in and outs, kick it out to an MP4 as a preview codec, and go from there. I'll see you in a minute.